COVID has finally come to this area, creeping closer to our neighborhood. Everyone has to keep safe. Other countries may have a high percentage of vaccination, but their contact rates are also very high. We can still catch it despite being vaccinated. So don't be ignorant. Try to stay alive through it. Normally, pandemics at this scale lasts roughly 2 to 3 years. In 1919, about a century ago, more than 10 million people died. Life is extremely hard these days. Making a living is almost impossible. And there's also a shortage of food and supplies. We can still use our old clothes, but we need sustenance every day. Housing is also an issue. People cannot pay their rent. Not earning nearly enough at this point. At least we still have the 30 baht welfare benefit for the medical treatment. There's also health insurance and social security. Actually, our national public health is rather good. In comparison to those in other countries that many people believe are better. If you don't have the money, then you stay outside like a stray dog. You'll be denied treatment because you don't have insurance or the money. We can get free treatment for COVID here. While many countries don't have this benefit, especially those top-tiered countries, it's not their direction. Their people have to be able to take care of themselves. Every man for himself. With the available options we have, we just have to do whatever possible to earn enough to buy food. Clothes, living space, and medical treatment. These are inherently the true basic needs in our lives. The Buddha created the society of monks as an example. Food is available only from offering, for instance. We don't actually eat much in a day. We have this habit of ordering a table full, while each person can actually eat about 10 to 20 bites. Or 30 at the most, and that's close to exploding. Monks get food from collecting alms, which is enough as sustenance. Our body needs sustenance, not specific dishes. Our body needs nutrients. But our defilement wants this or that dish. That's the mind wanting. Our body just wants sustenance. Monks also own only a few pieces of clothes. The inner garment, the yellow robe, and the outer robe. They wear the inner garment, then wrap with the yellow robe over. just like a top or a shirt. The outer robe is also a blanket when it's cold. And that is all for a monk. It's sufficient enough to survive. Some people misunderstand that. We need to wear all three pieces at all times. That's absurd, they just make it up. Some people actually asked why I didn't wear the outer robe over the yellow robe when I went to teach outside. Don't think you know the monastic discipline better than us. There's no such thing in the discipline. When I stroll around in the temple, I don't have to wear the outer robe, since there's a place I can keep it in proximity. Or if I go out, and I have the Gatin exemption or the Buddhist Lent exemption, I don't have to wear it. Also, Thailand is too hot for too many layers. It's just not suitable for this climate. It's borderline clinging to rites and rituals. The outer robe is appropriate when it's cold. We also use it as a pillow when it's not. The 4 basic minimum needs for monks are the utmost basic. There's a living facility. If it's not in the Lent period, even the tree stump is a choice. We can choose between cottages, if available, or under the tree canopy. When I was a layman and went to meditate at a temple, some masters allowed me to stay in a monk cottage. But I sometimes asked for permission to stay in the forest instead. Sometimes staying outdoors in open space among the trees could help with meditation. We have to be on alert all the time and can't be too relaxed or lazy if we are in a tent under a tree. Our mind will be vigilant, cautious for any animal invasion. Or if a ghost might decide to manifest, our mind must be on high alert. The ghosts at some places were terrifying. Look at you, all wide and bright eyes hearing ghost stories. Anyhow, as far as living space for monks, a cottage, a chapel, or even under a tree are acceptable. As for medicines, per the Buddha's permission, there are such as honey, sugarcane juice, or cheese used as the old household remedy. During difficult times, sufficiency is already enough for us to get by. Hardship comes normally once in a while in our lives. Since it can come, it can go away just as well. COVID pandemic will not last forever. If the disease lasts, it'll be in a manageable level, unlike now. Everything comes and goes. We just have to keep ourselves alive until then. While the body requires 4 basic needs, there are also 4 essentials for the mind. 1 nourishment for the mind is the merits. A meritorious mind is a happy mind, as merits bring joy to the mind. If we have a chance to do any good deed, just do it. Those good deeds and merits rejuvenate the mind. keeping it from drying and shriveling up. With them, the mind feels alive and fresh. The mind is happy. Because merit is another word of happiness. A mind that's full of sins is the malnourished mind. Wholesome and meritorious deeds are nutrients that feed the mind. Luangpu Dun taught us to do the merit. If the occasion arises. If the occasion has already passed, then stay calm. Do not get restless, don't be overeager doing it. It won't be wholesome, if done with such a restlessness, driven by craving and delusion. Greediness for returns, results, also robs the mind from wholesomeness and joyfulness. To make an offering praying for a lottery win, for example. We've also heard about a woman taking off a ring. Using it as an offering to pray for a good husband. Her wish came true, because her mind was truly wholesome at the time. This is definitely not the case for just about everyone. Doing something while expecting something in return, then you won't get much. The mind that is meritorious is a happy mind in itself. This is how to nourish the mind. Monks can also make merits within their resources, such as donating the leftover to other people or animals. If people donate money, and they don't have any use at that point, they can donate to help society. I, as well as our monks, also do that. We regularly donate to various foundations and hospitals, including the items that we receive but overstock. Last week, myself, Fra Ajahn R, and Kun Mei Chi ordered 8,400 bottles of drinking water sent to the field hospitals. May you all give appreciative joy. This is another way of merit making. Merits can happen when we rejoice in wholesomeness. When we think about a good deed, our heart swells and is refreshed. This is what nourishing the mind is, feeding the mind. When I told you about the merits I made, and you felt the appreciative joy. This appreciative joy is one of the 10 items of meritorious actions. Our mind becomes luminous and alive, feeling satisfied just like after having a good meal. Merits are, therefore, the food for the mind. Similarly, material items are the food for our body. Our body needs, for instance, food, shelter, and clothes. Much like the clothes for the body, there's the so-called cloth for the mind, which is morality, Zlatz. We wear clothes to avoid immodesty. Clothes reserve us from indecency and embarrassment. Well, unless it's someone without reservation. Anyhow, the clothes for our mind are moralities. Keeping moralities well is like dressing in an appropriate attire, which gives us confidence in any public function. People without moralities is categorized as shameless. Monks who lack moralities is called sham monks, or shameless monks. Moralities reserves us from shamefulness. Hence clothes for the mind comparison. We need to have moralities. Or else we're just like the hungry ghost walking around naked. So embarrassing to the higher beings. A person without moralities is like someone walking naked in the middle of the market. If we happen to have celestial eyes, we'll see that ghosts or hungry ghosts don't really wear much. Some don't have anything at all or just a couple of rags. Have self-restraint and moralities. So we have decent clothes for our mind. With it, we won't feel ashamed or embarrassed when meeting the teachers. Monks without moralities are bad monks, and are called shame monks or arlaji in Bali. Arlaji means shameless or unafraid of sin. Those who break precepts are called arlaji. As the body's basic needs are, such as food, clothes, shelter, and healthcare. The mind requires food, which is merits, clothes, which is zilats, and shelter, which is samadhi. The mind needs a shelter just like we do. The shelter for the mind is what we call a home base. We need to have a home base. Without a home base, the mind is like a homeless person. A homeless person isn't happy, right? We all need to have a place to live, to eat and to sleep. Animals also need the nests to care for their younglings. Those living in a tree have the leaves and branches as covers from the rain. Small creatures on the ground can hide under the fallen leaves. Snakes can stay in the hedges or bamboo groves. Animals want shelters just like we do. So does the mind. We can't buy or rent a home for the mind, but build one ourselves. We can choose the type of home we want to live in. How about the breath? If we use breath as our home base, when the mind stays with the breath, it can rest and feel safe and comfortable, just like when we're in our own home. When the mind has a home base, it feels safe and confident. So, find a home base for our meditation. Be it chanting Buddha or observing the breath. Or we can breathe and chant Put when inhale and Do when exhale. We can combine the two together. We can also observe the four principal movements. Be aware when we stand, walk, sit, or lie down. Or having a clear consciousness with every movement, or when being still is also good. It's called mindfulness with clear comprehension. Being mindful whenever the body moves as well as when the mind moves. Don't just let the mind wander aimlessly. When the mind wanders off, the mind abandons its home and becomes homeless. In short, to be able to meditate contently, we need those things. Make merits so the mind feels joyful and fulfilled, like receiving food and nutrients. Have morality so we have clothes to protect the mind. practice concentration, so the mind can have a shelter. This is different for each person. Some masters stay in the form jhana states, while it's the formless jhana for others. Some also use nirvana, or specifically the fruition attainment state of nirvana, which is also achievable by making the way up from the first jhana. Basically, it's using nirvana as the concentration object. Since we're not at that level yet, let's just use our breath, Buddho, or our body standing, walking, sitting, and lying down, or our abdomen rising or falling. Find our mind a home base for it to stay occasionally. Pick 1 or 2 home bases at most, for instance, the breath and Buddho. Don't have too many homes. Having too many homes means too many shackles we have to run around taking care of. This one house on this day and to another one on the next. In each house, we also need to dust and clean. So exhausted, but with only a few moments to rest when the next day already arrives and we need to move to another house to dust and clean until we're drained again. Too many homes doesn't mean more happiness, but rather more burdens. Similarly, though 1 or 2 home bases is acceptable, 1 home base is better. For some people, the mind may still be restless with 1 home base, so we need the second one for it. However, this second home needs to go together and along with the first home. For example, we breathe in and say put, breathe out and say do. They're right after one another, like 2 houses sharing a fence. In shorts, the mind also needs somewhere to stay. If not, it will just wander aimlessly. To where? To the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. It will savor feelings, be it minor or major, happy or sad, wholesome or unwholesome, prominent or subtle, or internal or external phenomena. The mind will wander perpetually, because it doesn't have a home. Consequently, we need to give the mind a meditation object, giving it a home. Having something for the mind to stay with, so it can rest and relax. Another thing the mind needs is healthcare. The disease in the mind are defilements. Some physical illnesses are caused by the cell's abnormalities, like cancer for instance, not because of a virus or the like. Some illnesses, like COVID, are caused by viruses. We need medicines as treatment or protection for them. The disease that harms, entangles, and corrupts our mind, making it foul and evil, worthy of hell, is defilement. The only cure for the defilement is wisdom. Morality ultimately does not eliminate defilements. They are very strong enemies that we can't yet win, and need to retreat into our fortress, avoiding any direct confrontation. Samadhi, concentration, is another tool to fight defilements. With sufficient concentration, the mind is strong, even stronger than keeping moralities alone. With this, we can now engage in rounds winnings and losings with the defilements when we have sufficient concentration. Defilements retreat. When the concentration is low, defilements reappear. Hence not the elimination of defilements just yet. The only cure for defilement is always wisdom. Wisdom is understanding of the truth, therefore, can completely uproot the defilements. Defilements do have various layers and facets. However, wisdom also have different levels, ranging from fundamental, to moderate, to perfect and comprehensive. Per the Buddha's teaching, a stream enterer has a perfect morality, little concentration and little wisdom. A once returner has perfect morality, moderate concentration, and little wisdom. A non-returner has perfect morality, full concentration, and moderate wisdom. An arahant has perfect morality, full concentration, and full comprehension of wisdom. The full comprehension is where the defilement is completely eliminated. For a normal layperson, it's incomparably little. We don't even have perfect morality to start. Consequently, upholding morality is imperative. Make it our conscious effort that if an opportunity comes, we'll do that good deed and ensure our morality. We'll also practice concentration meditation as our tool to fight defilements to a certain level. With concentration, we can fight moderately harmful defilements, such as the hindrances of meditation. Hindrances of meditation prevent the mind from goodness, while wisdom is the ultimate tool to fight the innate defilement, which is our ignorance. The little wisdom that a stream enterer has was one that sees the truth that there isn't a self anywhere. This body isn't self. The happiness or distress aren't self. Perception or memory aren't a self. Good or bad feelings aren't self. The consciousness that travels either to the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, or the mind isn't a self. Even the mind that is the knower isn't a self. This knower mind is, however, wholesome. With the meditation progress, a knower mind develops. This step is very crucial to wisdom cultivation. Without this knower's mind, true wisdom cultivation isn't possible. We require a good concentration foundation, and progress further until the mind acquire the state of knowing, awake, and joyful. With this mental stage, we then use it to cultivate wisdom. By observing the body, seeing that it isn't a self, but an object of observation. Keep observing each aggregate until we see that even this mind isn't a self. To fully accept that there isn't a self anywhere is the intuitive grasp of Dharma. Completely see that there isn't a self eliminates the fetters and defilements that bind us to existence, keeping us in the endless rebirth cycle. Principally, the first three fetters eradicated are, firstly, self-view, and secondly, the skeptical doubt in the triple gems. If we reach the state where we eradicate the misunderstanding about self, we'll never again doubt the integrity of the triple gem, since it's because by following the Buddha's teachings we cultivate our mindfulness and wisdom that we can achieve this. This confirms the reality of the Buddha and the accuracy of his teaching that his path truly leads to the cessation of suffering. It also shows us that the real Sangha truly exists. This is because our mind already becomes one with the Sangha. In short, the stream enterer has a confirmed confidence in the Buddha, his teaching, and his community, Sangha. There's no longer any skepticism in the triple gems. Another fetter that the stream enterer eradicates is Luangpu Pramote, or the adherence to mere rites and rituals. What's qualified as such? Any clinging to rules, rituals, or vows which do not support the wholesomeness cultivation and unwholesomeness eradication are, because they are not aligned with the Noble Eightfold Path, nor the constituents of enlightenment. All of such are Luangpu Pramote and are ignorant. For example, should we say a prayer before meditating? It's a good thing if we know that praying is paying respect to the master. Just like boxers do before their fights, saying a prayer can help calm the mind, reducing the restlessness. Hence easier to do the calm meditation. Praying with logic and reason isn't Luangpu Pramote. But praying this sermon or chanting that piece is. Praying and wishing for something good to happen is. None of these actions are in line with cultivation of morality, concentration and wisdom, but craving and expectation, despite the same action. It may be Luangpu Pramote to one person but not to another, because they do it with understanding that it is to facilitate their cultivation. An example is with the types of food, or eating only one meal a day is the best, deeming people who eat 2 meals as inferior, while holding such pride in their one-meal regime. This is far from walking on the path to enlightenment, but rather accumulation of defilements. That's unacceptable. Another person may eat 1 meal as well, or 2 even, but they know the true benefits of those foods as sustenance, to sustain health and provide life energy, to use as resources in their meditation. However, if the person isn't eating, and thinks that it is a way to cultivate the noble path, or not sleeping, believing that these behaviors are good and correct ways in attaining enlightenment, then this is still ignorance, unless that person finds that, on the day they fast or refrain from sleeping, their mindfulness is clear and strong, so they do it in order to progress in their meditation. Then it is not Luangpu Pramote. In short, the same action, but with different reasons and objectives, yield totally different values and qualities. However, a stream enterer no longer has these false beliefs. They have a clear understanding of the right path to purity and liberation, which is moralities, meditation, and wisdom, and the 8 noble paths. The stream enterer eliminates those 3 fetters I mentioned earlier. In the fundamental level of wisdom, we see that all the 5 aggregates are non-self. The intermediate level wisdom, however, exhibits further that not only that this body is non-self, it's suffering. This body isn't anything wonderful at all, but suffering in and of itself. If our wisdom isn't quite there yet to attain the intermediate level wisdom, we can only see that the body brings happiness one moment and suffering in another. Only when we attain the 3rd enlightenment, acquiring the intermediate level of wisdom, we then can see that this body is nothing but suffering. There's only a lesser or greater degree of suffering. Realizing this, the mind releases its attachments to the body. Why should it keep its grip when suffering is its only reward? Seeing that the body is in and of itself suffering, isn't worthwhile or wonderful, the mind then lets go of the body. In short, with the 3rd level of enlightenment, the non-returner no longer has clinging on the body, ergo the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and the body. Since the eyes aren't something to cling on, the image isn't anything of value either, unaffected by the pleasure and aversion from images. When they no longer cling to ears, hearing, then the sound isn't anything worthwhile. When the sound isn't anything of value, then the pleasure or aversion from sound isn't either. The same goes for the smell, taste and the tactile sensation. The physical feeling is also the same. Without any clinging to the body, what good is the physical sensation? It no longer has any effect on the non-returner. Because the intermediate level of wisdom exhibits that this body is nothing but suffering. It isn't the alternation between suffering and happiness, but only various degrees of suffering. When the mind becomes detached to the body, it becomes undisturbed by the image, sound, smell, taste, and sensation. They break free from clinging to image, sound, smell, taste, and sensation, as well as the aversion from image, sound, smell, taste, and sensation. In short, the sensuous craving and aversion are eradicated, liberating them from the mid-tiered fetters. What that's left in the final stage all relates to the mind. The rest of the fetters don't have much to do with external factors. In this final step, it all boils down to the mind. In this final step, the highest tier of wisdom, they discover that the mind itself is suffering. There's only greater or lesser suffering, nothing but suffering. In the intermediate level, they realize that the body is nothing but suffering, only lesser or greater suffering. In this ultimate level, the wisdom is that the mind is suffering, and there's only greater or lesser suffering. The mind isn't anything worthwhile. Consequently, the mind releases its clinging grasp of its existence, and in turn releases its hold on the aggregates, which are the products of the mind. All these 5 aggregates derive from a sole origin, which is the mind. Only by releasing the mind alone, we can also release the clinging on all 5 aggregates. We use these 5 aggregates to perceive and experience the world. When we let go of our clinging to these aggregates, we also release our clinging to the world. Letting go of our clinging to the mind, we then eradicate our clinging to the 5 aggregates, and thus the world as a whole. This is the ultimate wisdom. High-level knowledge can eradicate the defilements which are our enemies, the disease in our heart. The more we meditate, the higher wisdom we gain. Again, the fundamental level of wisdom is that of the stream enterer. The intermediate level is that of the non-returner. Actually, the fundamental level is that of the stream enterer and the once returner. The intermediate level is that of the non-returner, and the high wisdom is that of the arahant. All these levels evolve around battling against defilements. To win over the defilements means we successfully rid our mind of diseases. Without any diseases, we can live peacefully. No more fighting with the defilements. No more fighting with the world. The only reason people madly fight and argue is because of defilements. People want status, wealth and power, while disregarding other people. Some even purposely lead their people to their death to blaze a trail to their own power. It's all defilements. It's a pity. Those people are pitiful. If only they had clairvoyance or clairaudience, they'd be fearful of doing bad conduct. One thing I admire about Luangpu Lingdom is his teaching about heaven and hell. When people see the existence of heaven and hell, they fearfully refrain from doing bad conduct and aspire to do good deeds. It's an effective incentive to stop doing bad and thrive in doing good. If we see that there's such things as spirits, hungry ghosts, asura, hell fiends, and also angel, Brahma, etc., we'll see the differences categorized by the refinement of their mind. If the mind is full of defilement, then it'll take root and originate the 5 aggregates in the nether realm. If the mind has little defilement, it'll take existence in a good realm, such as that of human, angel, or Brahma. Fortunately, we meditate, we get to see and realize that our worst enemy are defilements. Some people seek momentary happiness. They are foolish. An example of which is the fish thieves here from the temple's ponds. They only stay away when monks stop them, only to come back when the monks aren't there. They come every single day. It's not that we're stingy, but because we try to save them from the repercussions. They'll only end up being hungry ghosts and beg for offerings near the temple. They have no idea how terrifying the cycle of rebirth is. Only see the short-lived gain right in front of them. There's also news about people faking death in the middle of the road on hire to spread hoaxes. They lie there long enough to get photos up on Facebook, and then up and about to the next spot. They just take these kinds of odd jobs. Just for whatever bits for a quick fix, not realizing that life doesn't just end when death comes. If everything truly ends in this lifetime, people will just want to do whatever they think for immediate happiness. Believe that wealth is the source of happiness. Think that fame brings happiness. Well, that's the happiness for the ignorant. The rich are worried about where to securely save their wealth. Is the bank good enough? Will it collapse? Is it better to invest? Will the stock plummet? So worrisome. The richer, the more worried. Some have lots under their care. Some people have lots of cats. That only means more responsibilities, busy trying to feed them all. I'm not criticizing. Kindness towards animals is a virtue and appreciated, admired, but for some people, their lives are governed by their possessions. Owning many cars may give an image of wealth, but that also means more responsibilities. Simply put, they just give values to trifling matters. In fact, similar to the 4 basic minimum needs for the body, the mind also needs 4 basic essentials, of which I mean offering merits when possible, keeping moralities, practicing meditation, and cultivating wisdom. These conducts grant strength and cleanse our heart, similar to the 4 basic minimum needs due to the body. Gradually improve ourselves by keeping moralities, cultivate mindfulness and wisdom, and they will enrich our lives. When we die, the body simply ceases, but the mind continues on. Therefore, it's essential to cultivate our mind the best we can. If we must, then choose to protect our mind before our body. If the mind is safe and free from defilements, we'll be granted with invaluable happiness. To survive one day at a time in this world means awaiting new sufferings to come. But the mind that already survives, it is filled with happiness, full and content. There's no longer any hunger. The hunger of the mind is craving. Because the mind isn't stupid anymore, the mind no longer has craving. It craves because of its own ignorance. That's good for today. Now is time for homework.
Number 1. I pray and practice samadhi during my formal practice at least 30 minutes every day. I use Buddha while observing the movements of my chest and physical feelings. If my mind is too busy, I see that the mind goes off to think instead. During the day I see the body moving. Or sometimes I feel anger, or when I savor a taste. But sometimes I got totally lost into my work. I see that meditation is also non-self. Sometimes it's going great with automatic mindfulness, and I even see the mind generate sufferings. But sometimes the mind is so scattered, wandering off and lacking samadhi. May I have your advice, please?
What you're doing is good. Keep on doing just so. But don't try to make the mind still like right now. You're modifying your mind, trying to keep it still. Modifying the mind like this obstructs wisdom. The mind needs to be in its natural state. Allow it to rise and fall, to change. The body moves and changes, so does the mind. We just need to have awareness along with it. Don't try to keep this awareness though. Just let it be. If you try too hard, you'll feel constricted. You're diligent, good. Your life will improve and become happier as a result. Your aggregates are also separated. Now observe the three characteristics of each one. See that it's not a self, not an us, nor ours. Keep observing like this for a while, and the scattered mind will become tamer. Once it calms down enough, take it to observe the aggregates. Don't stay in the calmness for too long or for days. It's simply a waste of time, just until calm enough to stay stable, no longer immersed in the objects. If our concentration isn't sufficient, the mind will jumble up with the object. With sufficient concentration, the mind can stay as a stable and impartial observer. Don't purposely hold the observer, however, that's incorrect.
Number 2. I've followed your teachings from YouTube. My formal practice is observing my breath in and out while chanting Budo. I observe the body breathing, and be mindful when the mind goes off to think. Then come back to Budo. I also spare time to watch your YouTube, during the day or while working. I try to be mindful of my body, observing the body movements. I can somewhat see when something arises in my mind. Is what I'm doing acceptable?
It is, but we need to continue developing. Right now, are you aware that you're holding your mind still, and the delusion is overpowering it? Your awareness is blurry, not sharp. Because of the delusion covering the mind. See that the mind is hazy. Try moving a bit. Lift up your hands, both of them. Move them about casually. Relax your mind and move. Right now your mind is better than previously, right? The mind before now was covered by delusion. In a deluded state, it's futile to meditate. It's what the masters call concentration rooted in delusion. No beneficial gain from basking in such stillness. Rouse your awareness. Don't allow it to fall into stupor. The mind needs to be awake, aware, and alert. Falling into stupor is the opposite of being awake. It's just like sleeping and dreaming. So, take a couple of deep breaths. Now, the mind right now is usable. Get it now, good. Don't just sit mindlessly. It'll become a habit. And the mind will always fall back into this state, so don't allow it to bask in the stupor.
Number 3. Last time you told me to observe whatever the mind makes contact with and to see my opinionatedness and assertiveness. Presently, I can occasionally observe the mind's mechanism to contact senses. I also keep the 5 precepts and pray in the morning and evening daily. I use breath contemplation during my formal practice, make merits as I'm comfortable with, and see that my mind is softer and more humble to Dhamma. I see that my craving, opinionatedness, and ego do decrease though not totally gone. But I try to use critical reflection and patience. May I have further instruction, please?
You're doing correctly and making some progress. Be cautious, however, of your eagerness to do well, to reach the goal quickly. This craving results in the mind struggling, searching methods to quickly reach enlightenment. Be aware of this craving, and see the mind restlessly struggle for the fastest way to attain liberation and progress. Be aware of this often. The mind will gradually reach equanimity, then continue on your cultivation with equanimity. Meditate as much as possible, but without expectation. Don't do it with expected results in mind. And your progress will be even faster. Anumodhana. What you're diligently doing is very satisfactory.
Number 4. There are 3 defilements that are my weaknesses. Firstly, I am afraid of dying since I was a kid. So afraid that I couldn't sleep for months at one point, for fearing I wouldn't wake up. It was so bad that I considered seeing a psychologist, for always wondering what had happened after death. I regularly make merits, keep precepts the best I can, as well as meditate consistently, but I still cannot feel safe enough. Another one is feeling tired with the world. When this mood strikes, samadhi is simply impossible. Even though I see it, it won't go away. The last one is stress. I need ways to deal with them, please.
The root cause of all 3 issues is loving oneself. Because we love ourselves, we're afraid of it dying. We're afraid of losing it. All of the matters stem from this single origin. All the stress and whatnot stems from this self-love. The straightforward cure for this is to directly see at what's called our self. See whether it's truly us. Is this body an us? See carefully. The body is in the materiality category, right? We borrow some elements from both our parents. We then live on food, water, and air from the world. Their only elements circulate perpetually. Consequently, this body doesn't truly belong to us, nor is it an us. It's just something we temporarily borrow from the world. Contemplate this point as often as possible. If you can do this, then helping yourself is achievable. All of them are because of fear of dying, which is the result of loving our self. Learn to see that it isn't an us or belongs to us, but something borrowed from the world. If our love for this self decreases, our mind won't struggle, fear or be worried. Which can solve those problems? When it's time for praying, do it to help strengthen the concentration. Make merit when an occasion arises. If not, then let it pass. There are a wide variety of meritorious deeds. If there isn't a chance, there's always the next time. But the highest of all merits is meditation. And the best meditation is one that's coupled with wisdom. That is by seeing within ourselves, seeing that this body that we so love and tightly guard is simply an object composed of various elements circulating. It isn't an us, nor does it belong to us. Keep teaching the mind like this, and eventually the mind will let go of this attachment.
Number 5. My formal meditation is contemplation of breath with chanting Buddha while observing the mind, the body, the feelings, and other phenomena. I also see when the mind goes off to think. My urge to force the mind during meditation is lower. But I understand that my mind is still not impartial. May I have further instruction, please?
Good that you see that. You are doing well. You'll see and understand clearer. But it's a gradual process. Meditate every day, and the understanding will further develop. Seeing and understanding correctly means wisdom, which is our weapon in our journey to winning defilements. What you're doing is good. Patiently meditate routinely. When the mind wanders off, which mostly to thinking, just know that it's and come back to your breathing, or Buddho. When it goes off again, know so, and return to your breathing or Buddho. Know though that the wandering mind, and the mind that stays with the breath or Buddho, are different ones. Don't try to reel the mind back to your breath. It's already gone off and that's that. Just let it go. And pay attention to the mind that just newly rises, and stay with your breath or Buddho. Soon enough you'll see the rising and falling of the mind. The mind is in one moment the knower and the wanderer the next. Observing like so to cultivate the mind. Your meditation is good. Anumodhana.
Number 6. During my meditation, I often hear a voice telling me to stop, saying that I can always do it tomorrow. May I have your suggestions, please?
It's the voice of Mara, demon. Mara tries to tempt us to sleep, go out, play, or anything but meditate. Don't believe it. If it tells you to stop, just say that you'll stop tomorrow, not now. Because you may not have tomorrow. And today is your last day. Because tomorrow may never come. We cannot afford to put off our meditation. If we stop now and put it aside for the next day, and if the next day never comes, then we lose out. If Mara tells you to stop and do tomorrow, just say that you don't believe it. Because if there isn't tomorrow, then you'd lose out. So don't listen to it. It's the defilements talking. It's best to think that today might be our last day. This motto effectively strengthens our resolve to meditate. If we remind ourselves that today is our last day, we won't be lazy and be more invested in our meditation. So, set your resolve. Don't fall for it. Your mind right now is good. The state it's in right now is good.
Number 7. I've been following the instructions from the CDs for years. My home base is Buddho with breathing as well as the body standing, walking, sitting, and lying down. I find the formal practice too stressful, so I listen to your CDs in the morning and evening instead, because I work at home. Please suggest the technique most suitable to me.
When you're doing chores, observe the body that's doing them. Use the body as your based object. Keep being aware when the body moves. Don't be concerned whether what you're doing is good enough. Simply be conscious when the body moves. Focus on this aspect. Use the body as your home base, giving your mind a home. Use the body as your base, and be aware when the body moves. Those who do house chores are actually lucky, because they can meditate the entire day. Those who do office work require lots of thinking, thus can't really do mindfulness or cultivate wisdom effectively during work. When we think, we cannot cultivate wisdom. However, if we work with our body, we can have mindfulness and cultivate wisdom while observing it moving about. For you, your mind seems to lighten up and becomes awake when seeing the body, so keep on observing the body. Don't worry about observing the mind just yet. You'll see it eventually.
Number 8. I meditate about 30 minutes daily. Lately, my anger has become stronger and more frequent. Little things can already set it off. When anger arises, I try to be aware and observe it, which I'm able to from time to time. When I can also see that my mind is not equanimous. I see that I don't like the state that I'm in. My problem is I cannot seem to reach equanimity. My mind always gets immersed in the phenomena. Could you please teach me how I can improve further?
Keep on meditating. Letting go is the work of wisdom, not ours. We can't order the mind to just let go of anything, but if the wisdom consummates, the mind will let go on its own. When it accepts that the body is suffering, it can only let go of the body. We can't tell it to do so, because that's the job of the wisdom. Our task is to keep on meditating, Your mind is still very busy. You need to have a meditation object, so the mind becomes less scattered. Be aware often. Your mind is wildly scattered. Hence the focus object is a must. Don't force it though. If you try to force the mind to stay with the object, aversion will arise. Be with the object comfortably and contently. See the body breathing contentedly without any manipulation. Just simply see the body breathing. Don't alter the mind and make it unnatural. Some people alter their mind, making it softer while observing the body breathing. Don't. Use the normal mind to see the body breathing, standing, walking, sitting, lying down. See it doing chores and whatnot with a normal mind. When the mind becomes unnatural, it tells us that there's an irregular interference. The interference can be either wholesome or sometimes unwholesome, seeping into the mind. Patiently practice and you'll improve. Meditation is similar to academic study. To get a bachelor degree, we must start from kindergartens to high schools. It takes decades to get a degree, while a master only takes 1 to 2 years. A bachelor takes more than a decade. To attain a stream entry takes a long time. We need to meditate for a long time, perhaps even various lifetimes to achieve it. After that, though, to attain the higher degrees, that are wisdoms of the once-returner, the non-returner and the arahant, don't take as long, shouldn't be more than 7 incarnations, or even in 1 lifetime. Some may achieve it within this lifetime, so don't feel disheartened. The first step is always the longest. Our job is to keep doing it. Just like when we were still a child, we didn't think about when we were going to get a bachelor's degree. We probably stressed our brains thinking about it. We only thought about when we would finish kindergartens or grade schools, or similarly, when we learn to keep moralities, or when our mind is mindful of ourselves. Keep practicing every day, so we can progress and can separate the aggregates. Once they are separated, we don't even have to think about when to enlighten. It will happen on its own. When it's separated, then observe how each aggregate functions. Doing like this and the enlightenment will definitely happen one day. Don't be impatient. It's not constructive. It only makes us feel disheartened. It's now 10 a.m., so let's wrap this up. I feel relieved about one thing. I was worried about all of you during COVID, worrying that you couldn't submit homework. We were searching for solutions, until the Foundation proposed doing it via Zoom. We still don't have solutions for those who don't know how, or don't have the equipment or the internet access. And I simply cannot write responding letters. My eyesight isn't good anymore. And I can't write well. I'm not disabled, but I haven't written much since my bachelor degree. There weren't any computers when I started working, but I used a typewriter, and later switched to a computer ever since. If I write back to you, you probably can't even read it. So, writing letters isn't working for me. No solutions yet. Well, those who cannot Zoom with me, you must believe in your good karma. If you have any questions, listen to my CDs. Calm your mind and think of the Buddha. Ask for his help to let you find the suitable Dharma, and open the Dharma channel for you. Then play the CD and you'll find the answer. It's nothing supernatural at all, because in every CD I already teach everything that should answer you. That's it for today.